How can we grow curly hair to long lengths? In this video, we'll be discussing how Afro hair can grow, the best methods of length retention, and how to combat breakage and single-stranded knots. As you know, hair can be classified into 4 categories: type 1 for straight, type 2 for wavy, type 3 for curly, and type 4 for afro. Afro-textured hair can then be further categorized based on the curl pattern and the feel of the afro into 4A, 4B, and 4C. So let's take a closer look into afro hair. Afro hair has a curved hair follicle, which gives rise to coily, springy, curly hair, which is elliptical in cross-section. This is also why afro hair is more prone to ingrown hairs, because it can curl back around itself and penetrate the skin. As well as being curly, afro hair is highly twisted. The twists aren't unidirectional, but there's frequent and random twisting in opposite directions. This twisting and untwisting creates points along the hair shaft that are weaker in tensile strength and can break under stress. Under dry conditions, these spots are actually even weaker. In terms of the diameter of the hair, afro hair often has a thinner diameter, as the cuticle, which is the outer protective layer, often doesn't have as many layers, and this can make it more prone to breakage. In terms of hair growth, it's important to know that there are 3 stages of hair growth: anagen, catagen, and telogen. Anagen is the active hair growth phase. Catagen is where the hair stops growing and detaches from the blood supply. And telogen is the final resting phase, where the hair begins to shed. Each strand might stay in that active growth phase for 3, 4, even 5 years before it gets shed. To have really long hair, you want to prevent breakage so that each strand can stay in that active growth phase for as long as possible. But say, if your hair is breaking prematurely 1 or 2 years in, your hair will never get to the lengths that you're looking for. Remember I mentioned that there are points along the hair shaft that are weaker in tensile strength? Well, if you apply a large enough force to these areas, or if you apply regular, smaller amounts of force, the hair will still eventually break. Afro hair is very prone to breakage because of these weak spots, but also because of tangles and single-stranded knots. When afro hair forms knots, they're really tight, which causes significant strain on the hair, which damages the cuticular fibers and the integrity of the hair shaft. As opposed to Caucasian hair, when it forms knots, they're not as tight, and this does not cause as much damage to the cuticle. When you look at this micrograph, areas of matted hair are where these knots tend to form. So it's really important to use effective methods of detangling. Unfortunately, even combing can eventually damage the hair. The constant harsh tugging of the hair when we comb and detangle can eventually lead to breakage and longitudinal fissures. So it's a bit of a catch-22. It's not great if you comb your hair excessively, but it's also not great if you let it get matted. So what we need to do is strike the perfect balance between low manipulation and thoroughly detangled hair. And we can do this by keeping our hair stretched so it doesn't mat together and in protective styles. Here are some of my favorite protective styles: light box braids, cornrows underwigs, band 2 knots, and crochet braids. So what else can exacerbate breakage? The first thing is heat. The constant application of heat to the hair shaft results in a phenomenon called bubble hair. As you can see from this micrograph, you can see pockets of gas surrounding the cuticle, and this leads to irreversible damage. If you truly want healthy hair, you have to throw away the heat for good. But at the very least, try to use heat for the minimum amount of time necessary, space out the heating sessions, and use a lot of heat protection and conditioner. The next thing is relaxing afro hair. Afro hair is kept curly due to the disulfide bonds holding them together. Relaxing the hair uses sodium or potassium hydroxide to break down the disulfide bonds that keeps the hair curly. But in doing so, it also weakens the hair shaft and causes structural damage. So if you've ever done any chemical treatment to your hair, whether that's relaxing or bleaching or texturizing, your hair fibers will be a little bit weaker and prone to more breakage. And lastly, as I say, combing. The repeated strain of your hair from combing, even if you're doing it gently, can eventually result in enough mechanical damage to the hair shaft. Afro hair is unfortunately very prone to ruptured ends and longitudinal fissures. When combing your hair, you don't want to be doing this. Even if you're using a wide tooth comb, even if you're combing from the ends, this is still introducing enough trauma to the hair to cause it to break. If you feel yourself forcing the hair through, then just know that force is breaking the knots and not detangling them. Instead, you want to get the hair soaking wet with leave-in conditioner. Use your fingers to go through the hair, slowly detangling each knot as you go along, and then you can use your wide tooth comb. In general, try to switch out the styles that lead to a lot of detangling and matting of the hair. Why not consider styles that leave your hair stretched? Remember, your past treatment of your hair will make a big difference to how the strength of your hair is now. And so if you've used a lot of heat, relaxers, dyes, and harsh styles in the past, your hair will still have experienced a lot of wear and tear, and that's even if you're doing all the right things now. So now we've discussed the science of why Afro hair breaks, let's discuss what you can do to maintain it. Here's how to cleanse, moisturize, and condition Afro hair. Cleansing your scalp. A cleansed scalp is really important. While sebum keeps your hair moisturized, it also traps dirt, dust, and environmental pollutants. It's important to use a gentle shampoo or apple cider vinegar, which is not too stripping, and only use it when you feel as though there's a lot of buildup. This can change from person to person. Studies show that washing your hair with shampoo every other week might be a good place to start with Afro hair. Next thing you can do is moisturize your hair regularly. The water content in Afro hair is lower than in other hair types, and the sebaceous glands often secrete less sebum, which often has an uneven distribution along the hair shaft due to its spiral shape, leaving the hair dry. Afro hair should be kept moisturized every day to help maintain adequate hydration along the hair shaft. The best way to moisturize your hair would be using the liquid oil cream method. That involves getting the hair damp with a light liquid, water works great, and then moisturizing up and down the entire hair shaft. After this, you want to seal in that moisture with an occlusive oil. Next, you want to consider conditioning your hair. Conditioners help to fill in the defects along the hair shaft. Leave-in and deep conditioners are the most important aspects of your hair care routine, allowing the conditioner to have longer contact with your hair. With your leave-in, it's best to dampen the hair and immediately apply the leave-in and follow it up with an oil, such as coconut oil, sweet almond oil, or olive oil. Lastly, you want to consider a protein treatment. This helps to infuse the hair shaft with hydrolyzed protein. This helps to strengthen the hair fiber, and the results can be seen almost immediately in terms of a reduction in breakage. It has to be done quite regularly in order for it to work. So, an Afro hair care routine might include the following: daily moisturizing using the liquid oil cream method, and cleansing the hair and scalp every other week, and then using regular protein and moisturizing conditioners. In the next section, we'll discuss how you can use protective styles to get the maximum benefit from them.